Although we all know about the new lens blur feature in Photoshop's Camera or Lightroom, all you need to do is to just open that up and apply it. Adds a wonderful background blur, but there is an undercover hidden feature right underneath it. Oftentimes, an underrated cousin gets overshadowed by an overrated cousin, but we're not going to let that happen right here. Instead of focusing on the blur, let us focus on the way that it's blurring it. If you check Visualize Depth, you'll see a map, and this map shows which area is further away from the camera and which area is closer to the camera, and Photoshop automatically creates this, and based on this, you blur certain parts of the image. If we turn this off, we can change which areas we want to keep in focus and which area we want to blur. We can keep the background in focus and the subject blurred, or the subject in focus and the background blur. And imagine having this information for other kinds of adjustments. Wouldn't that be cool? So how do we get all of this depth map right inside of Photoshop, and how do we use that as an adjustment? That's what the video is all about. So without any further ado, let's get started. Back in the mystical world of Photoshop, and if you wish to go ahead and download this photo and follow along, you know what to do. Check the links in the description. As you can see, this is looking very flat. There is not so much sense of depth. First of all, let's create a depth map. Here's how we do it. With the background layer selected, go to Filter, Neural Filter. Inside of that as well, there is a depth blur effect, but with a twist. If you turn on depth blur right here, it's still in beta, so I'm hoping in the future it's gonna get even better. Let's scroll down, fingers crossed. Scroll down. It's taking a little bit of time, by the way, because it's processing on device, which is a good thing. Now that it's processed, scroll down, and right here you'll see Output Depth Map Only. Check that and make sure your output is set to New Layer. Hit OK, and there you have the depth map right there. Now what is this? The darker areas are closer to the camera and the brighter areas are further away from the camera. So how do we create a mask out of this depth map? Simple. Simply go to Channels. If you cannot see Channels, go to Window, and you want to make sure Channels is checked. Just hold the Controller command and click on the thumbnail of the RGB channel. It's going to make a selection based on the brightness levels. So right now the brightest areas are selected more and the darker areas are selected less. Once we have this selection, you can actually delete this. Select layer 1, press the delete key. I'm sorry about that. There is an active selection. My bad. You need to drag it to the trash can. Because of an active selection, it just deletes differently. With the selection active, click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose curves. Now this is targeting more the further areas of the image because the further areas are brighter and the close by areas are darker. First, we want to target the close by areas, and we want to have more contrast in the areas that are closer to us, right? Because when you go out and look at an actual landscape, I know it's very unlikely for computer people like us, but try to go out. And when you do, you will notice that the close by areas have more contrast and the further areas are a bit more faded. They're also less saturated and the close by areas are more saturated. So we can use that to our advantage to add more depth to this photo. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. Right now, it is targeting more the closer areas. So let's go to the properties by double clicking on the symbol of the adjustment layer and let us increase the contrast easily by using the hand. Select the hand right here, and these areas maybe I want to brighten like so, and these areas we want to darken like so, thus increasing the contrast. You can also manually do it, up to you. So I'm going to increase it slight bit more like so. And now have a look at the difference. So here's the before, here's the after. Adds more contrast in the close by areas, but it's also adding a bit of contrast further away. We do need to control that. And how do we do that? There are actually two ways. First of all, with this curves adjustment layer selected, press Ctrl or Command J to make a copy. And with this new curve, we are going to target the further away areas. I'm just going to name it far away, and we are just going to name this close. So for the further away areas, we want to select the mask and press Ctrl or Command I. Why? Because the further away areas need to be brighter. And how does layer masks work? White areas show up, black areas hide. So since the further away areas are brighter, they're going to be targeted more. So right now, let us go back to curves by double clicking on it. You can actually reset it by clicking on this button right here and just add more fade by taking the left point up like so. There we go. It adds more mist or kind of haze or fade right there. Now the next technique to control the contrast or the effect is to make the mask more prominent. Right now, the mask is very loose. We want the background not to be affected at all in this case, or very less. So select the mask and press Ctrl or Command L. I know it is very rare for me to use levels, and yes, I am Unmesh. You're watching PiXimperfect. Let us make the dark areas darker by taking the slider on the left hand side to the right. As you can see, By doing this, background is not being affected right now. You can also have the effect more on the subject by moving the slider on the right to the left like so. But be careful, it may affect other areas too. You can also use the middle slider to control it even more. There you go. This works fantastic for us. Hit OK. So that way, the contrast is controlled just to the very close by areas. For the fade that we added, I didn't want to add it so much on the subject, so you can make that prominent as well. And to do justice to curves, this time with the mask selected, press Ctrl or Command M. And now let us do the same thing with the curves. So we didn't want the subject to be selected right here. So take the leftmost slider and move it towards the right. And there you go. It's going away from it. You can have more fade there as well, but I don't want to do that. Maybe this will work for us. Let's go with something like that. Hit OK. Also, there's a weird mist right there. We don't want that. So let us remove the haze by taking the brush tool, selecting the mask, black as the foreground color with a soft round brush, one clean sweep, and everything gone nicely. I think we need to decrease the haze a bit. Now, I did a mistake, and that is deleting the depth map. We may need it from time to time, and it doesn't make sense time and again to create the depth map. So let us create one last time. With the background layer selected, go to Filter, Neural Filters. Inside of that, you want to make sure Depth Blur is checked, and scroll down, check Output Depth Map Only, New Layer, hit OK. Let us bring it at the top, and this time, let us go to Channels, hold the Controller command, click on the thumbnail of the RGB channel, and click on this button right here. This is our new channel. You can name it Depth Map. Sorry about that. Now, since you already have that selection, why not just use it? With the selection active, you can actually delete this right now because we already have it saved inside of channels. Let us click on the adjustment layer again, and this time, let us apply a color lookup table. I want the areas which are closer to us a bit warmer. So let's change the preset right here to crisp warm. Now select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. We only wanted it on the subject, and we didn't want it on the dark areas. It is just crushing the shadows. So how do we remove it from the dark areas? You already learned about it. Blend if. So double click on the right hand side of the layer and take it away from the dark areas of the layers that lie under it. In other words, the underlying layer. So take the slider of the underlying layer from left to right. It's going away from the dark areas, as you can see, but this is very harsh. So hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart, and just take it all apart to make the transition smoother. Hit OK. There you have it. And also you can work on the mask right here. Let us take a look at the before and after first. So here's the before, here's the after. I actually like it. Now let's take it away from all of these areas in the background. So select the mask, press Ctrl or Command M, justice for curves. And now take the slider on the left actually to the right. See, it's going away from the background, like so. All right. This works. Hit OK. There you have it, only on the subject areas. Now, why do injustice to faraway areas? We should also add color grading to that as well. So for the faraway areas, we already have a mask. So let's use that. Hold the Controller command, click on the thumbnail, click on the adjustment layer icon, and then choose color lookup. And you can choose in real time what you want for the faraway areas. So you can just try choosing what works. I wish there was a preview as we hover through them. Unfortunately, Adobe is not listening to my request on this. Anyway, let us go with probably tension green, but I feel it's too much. So let's select the mask, justice for curves, Controller Command M, and make the dark areas actually darker, like so. As you can see in the mask. So this will work. You can also create curves like so. Have it more in the faraway areas, hit OK. That is good, but I feel it's also too much. So let's decrease the opacity. Let's keep it at about 60%. That's nice. You can also add some flares to separate the subject and the background. So let us create a gradient. Select the gradient tool and select the radial gradient, not the linear, radial right here. And let us drag in a gradient like so. Right now the mask is selected, so that's going to be replaced. So you want to make sure you create a brand new layer first and then create that gradient. Let's drag it like so. Now definitely this doesn't look anything like a flare. We need to change colors. Double click right here. For the bright areas, let us pick yellow, bright yellow. As it fades away, it needs to be a bit more warmer, reddish. So double click right here and set that to red, like so. Hit OK. Now this needs to be transparent too. So how do we correct that? Let's go to Window and open up Properties right here. Inside of the layer properties as well, you can change the opacity. In the opacity control, on the side where it's red, select that slider and set the opacity of that slider to 0. And there you have it. Let's close it and you can move it anywhere you like. Let's extend it like this. Now we only want this to brighten stuff. Now what is the most common blend mode that brightens stuff? Screen, right? Change the blend mode from normal to screen. And as soon as you do that, have a look at that flare. It's so darn good. And we don't want it on top of the subject. And we do have a mask for that. So this mask would be ideal. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click and drag and drop it right here. I actually like it, although it's the opposite. Replace it, yes. Now this is the opposite of what we wanted. So select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. There you go. Actually, maybe have it a little bit over the subject because this is looking a bit odd. So I'm going to go to the mask right here. Open up the properties by going to Window and Properties. It should be open. I accidentally removed it, closed it. Decrease the density. The density is like opacity for the mask. So let's decrease it to have it just a little bit over the subject as well. Keep it at about 50%. That's nice. Now on top of that, I feel that the sky needs to have a bit more detail. For it, let's create a layer underneath it. Let's turn it off for the moment. Select the topmost layer, which is not turned on. And then let's go to Select and Sky. And it does a pretty darn good job. Let us create another curves adjustment layer by clicking on the adjustment layer icon, choosing curves. Actually, let's also have it absolutely beneath because we don't want the colors to get affected. Now let's just bring the sky down. Let's keep it this way. Now we have come a long way. There is one last thing, actually 2 last things we can do to make it even better, to create more separation. And that is a bit of background blur. So with the topmost layer selected, press Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E. This creates a merged layer of the top, a merged layer of everything you see on the canvas right now. Now let's go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters, because whatever filter we apply, we want to be able to change that later. Let's go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Now inside of it, you know this is very easy. Scroll down, Apply Lens Blur, open that up, click on Apply, wait for the magic. We need to uncheck Visualize Depth, and there you go. This is too much. We want to apply very little, something like 20 or even 18. But for this example, let's apply 20 because you're going to be watching it on YouTube and the screen will be small, so you need to be able to see the difference. Looks fantastic and dreamy, doesn't it? Now in the end, and this is optional, you can apply a bit of grain to bring all of the elements together. Press Ctrl Shift N, Command Shift N to bring the new layer dialog box, and in here, choose Overlay and check Fill with Overlay Neutral Color. Hit OK. This will create a brand new layer with gray fill. Now, since overlay is a blend mode which hides everything that is 50% gray, you don't see anything right here. Now let's go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters again, hit OK. Let's name it actually Grain. Now let's go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. And you can go really, really extreme with this one. So I'm gonna go maybe 50. Why not? And we can change it anytime. Why? Because this is a smart object. Gaussian is fine. Check monochromatic. Hit OK. Now this noise is very sharp. We need to blur it slightly. Let's go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. And change it to maybe 1.6. That is much nicer. Also, usually the noise is more in the darker areas. So you can double click on the right hand side of this layer and take it away from the bright areas of the layers that lie under it, or the bright areas of the underlying layer. So in the underlying layer section, take it away from the bright areas. Again, hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart and make the transition smoother. Now it is subtle, it's nice, it's bringing the elements together. There you go. Want to have a look at the before and after? So here is the before and here is the after. It's just insane difference. So that is all about utilizing the power of depth map in Photoshop. We all get so lost in the awesome lens blur that we forget about the wonderful depth map that it can create. And if you need the depth map for further adjustments, you know we saved it inside of channels, and right here we have our depth map. So all you need to do is to hold the Control or Command, click on the thumbnail to create that selection, come back to layers, and maybe for further adjustments you want to create, you guessed it, a curves adjustment layer, and then work from here. Actually, that is nice. Maybe I'm just gonna do just that. Why not? So good. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss any other future tips, tricks, or tutorials. I would like to take this moment to thank all of these nice and amazing people for supporting PiXimperfect on Patreon and making videos like this possible. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.